with their faults. Because if I'm going to look for a friend who never makes a mistake in the relationship, how long will I be looking? And if I find them, how long will I be able to hold on to them? No, friendships like this, marriage is like this, children is like this, finance is like this. Hey, Olam HaNisayon. This is one long time. It's Olam HaDimyon. It's not a real world. It's just an illusion. Even science will tell you it's mostly an illusion. The vast majority of physical matter that you and I interact with and see, 99.99, you go 12 spaces on average after the decimal point, and that's when you get to the amount of physical matter, because 99.99999% of physical matter is empty space. Really? Yeah. In the world of physics, that's how atoms really function. The amount of space between the actual nucleus, the protons, the atom, is vast. It's so vast that the proportionate distance from the center of an atom is more than the sun to the earth, proportionally. There's much more empty space in the physical world than what is actually physical matter. Most of this world is Olam HaDimyon, even by scientific standards. So that's why it's called Olam HaDimyon, a world of illusion, and it's a world of sheker. It's not real. And God wants me to get real with my das, im das kanita. Oh, if we have that mindset, and it's not a one-time choice, now I've got it. It's the next thought, and the next thought. And even if I messed up hundreds of thousands of times this week, and this week began last night, that doesn't equal the next thought. Because the next thought is whatever you choose it to be. And if it's a pop-up that you like, go with it. If you don't like it, erase it, ignore it, delete it, dump it. God tells me what to think. And Rebbe Nachman says it very clearly, Kaas destroys my character. But it's never too late to turn it around into Rahmanut, into, really? I can go from anger to compassion? You've got to be joking. How many times in our lives have we noticed that we judge someone, not necessarily very positively, only to find out a piece of information that completely switched our opinion from judgment to admiration? Not pity, but compassion from admiration. Wow, that's what you've been going through? Or that's what you are going through? I can't believe it. And you're still not letting go of God? You haven't let go of Yiddishkeit? You haven't let go of your relationship with your Creator? Wow, that's impressive. And who hasn't got their story? God's reality is that He knows that we live in thought, and that when we get trapped inside the pop-ups, we're only ever one thought away from making it all worthwhile. It may not seem that way, but if one person has one hero of teshuvah, one thought of correcting themselves, it changes everything, literally, in God's dictionary. A man who you know is eating a ham cheese sandwich. It's ham grilled with cheese, so it's basal chalav at the same time that it's also treif, and it happens to be Yom Kippur. It's the last seconds of Yom Kippur, and he takes his last swallow, and in that second, Yom Kippur goes out. A second later, he takes out money from his pocket, puts it in the hand of a lady standing next to him, and he says, "Hurry up, mikudeshesli, behold, you are betrothed to me according to Moshe and Israel, on condition, ani tzaddik gamur, that I'm a completely righteous individual." And I embellished this slightly, but this is the actual case in Shulchan Aruch. Yedua, everyone knows to who Rasha Gamor, he's a completely evil person. And the Gemara, and now the Shulchan Aruch, Even HaEzer, section 38, subsection 31, has this law. If someone who you know is a Rasha Gamor, and then says to an Isha, a lady, you are betrothed to me on condition that I am a righteous individual, completely righteous. What's the law? Mekudeshet, it's a valid marriage. But we saw him a second ago swallow a ham cheese sandwich. How do you say he's mekudeshes? And this is Shulchan Aruch. The Code of Jewish Law says Shema, perhaps, Hira teshuva belibai. He might have had a thought of teshuva in his mind. How long does that take? Oh, it's 1 second, one thought. How far are we ever away from the next thought? So God ends off the verse, Ani Hashem. I'm the one. I'm God. I created you. So I know you can actually go from one extreme to the other. You really can. Does that mean there will never be any more pop-ups of resentment or nakama that I will fall into? No, they will still pop up, but it's going to be much easier for me to handle if I knew and know the true origin of my feelings is not what's happening to me, the people and the circumstances, but what am I thinking? Christopher Reeve brought this home big time. I've got a lot of mileage from this story, but I'm just going to mention it very briefly. I met him in an audience must be about 16 years ago or something. While he was a quadriplegic, Superman, reduced to a quadriplegic, completely paralyzed from the neck down. First words that came out of his mouth were, I've never been more happy in my life than since my accident. How can you say that? I mean, he's a good actor, but how do you say that you've never been more happy than since your accident? And he explained the first 4 years he was in and out of depression. He was so depressed he wanted to commit suicide, and the poor man couldn't do it because he's a quadriplegic. He would actually sit there. The only parts of his entire body that moved were his eyes and his mouth. Could someone pull the plug, please? Someone? Anyone here? Please pull the plug. I can't take this anymore. He was in prison, inside. Where was he in prison? In his mind. He had no body to really speak of. He's not functioning. And so he had to live over here. It took him 4 years, he said, to recognize, and this was his enlightenment. He said, I've never been more happy in my life because I discovered the real me. He said, the real me is not my body. He said, the real me is not the millions of dollars I made. The real me is not the many homes I own. And he started giving us examples of who the real me really is. It's all thought in the moment. He didn't say in those words, but that's what it really comes to. Because that's reality. So Rebbe Nachman actually can get away with telling us that I can go from one extreme and break my cast with Rahmanut. Because compassion is a thought. It may feel like an experience of pity or compassion, but it's actually a thought. And if it's not a pop-up, I can choose it. And if I say, I don't want to choose compassion right now because I'm so resentful, so angry, well, that's a thought. No, but really angry, that's another thought. But after a while, it starts to become illusionary. You start realizing, one second. It's a thought. And it's not helping me. My blood pressure is going up. People around me don't like me when I get angry. My kids back off. People feel like I'm manipulating, controlling them with my anger. And so there's only downside. There's nothing upside. I'm hurting me. I'm hurting everyone around me. I can either go that direction, or I can cut to the chase by recognizing the origin of thought. Oh, Michael, how are you? 1 second. I was just enraged. No. My mind is focused over here, of greater value than who it is that I'm upset with. There's millions of dollars in this commission. I'm going to take this call. Oh, so my mind is really in control of me all the time. Pop-ups are pop-ups. But guess what? I can delete. I can press the X out. Or I can explore. Whoa, this is interesting. Really, on sale. Oh, I'm so glad I saw this. Only to figure out afterwards, after the credit card goes through, I can't believe I got scammed again! I can't believe it! Now, if it's a credit card, that's okay, but if I gave them on the phone and it's an immediate debit, ooh, why won't they take credit card? Watch out. But it's all thought. Ein hacham kebal hanisayon. There's no one wiser than someone who's been through it and comes back. And back down. To take the mystery out of all of this, I have to close very soon. What is a nisayon? What is a test? So I'm going to share with you, who have we got inside of us the DNA of their ability to overcome a test? Avram Avinu. Very interesting. The description there, you'll find this right near the end of Pirkei Avos, not the very end, but in Perek Mishnah Gimel. Asara nisyonis nisnase Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu Abraham, our forefather, was tested 10 times. The Amad Bekulam, he stood up to all of them. How do you do that? How do you stand up to a test? So the problem is, and actually Rebbe Nachman talks about this, he says, I'm trying to remember where it was, in Sichas round about Kuf Chaf Gimel, round about there, he says that I don't want to be mucked in, I don't want to lessen my yisurin, my suffering, because then I'll stop complaining. And by complaining, I think I'm venting, but really what I'm doing by complaining is I am living in the thought of what it is that I'm suffering or don't enjoy or find hard or blaming or accusing or denying or excusing or comparing. And what I'm actually doing by complaining is keeping the thought going and watering the weeds. And then I get really surprised when I discover that when I think about it, I'm starting to get like vibrations through my body, and I start to feel sick. And then I recognize I'm getting a lot of anxiety every time. But that's because I'm doing this to myself, because I'm overloading with what I'm thinking. And comes along the most extraordinary. You'll find this in Medrash Rabbah, you'll find this in Rashi, on the Mishnah. How was he oimed? How did you stand up to being told, take your son, your only son, the one you love, the one I promised you 30 years ago, 30 years before he was born, that you will father a nation from that child, the son of Sarah. Take your only child and bring him up as an oila, which sounded like God was commanding him to bring him as a korban, as a sacrifice. Now, you're Avram Avinu, and for the last 100 and somewhat years, you've been telling everybody, God is such a good God. He's a God of love. He doesn't need you to prove your loyalty by sacrificing your children. What do you think's going through his mind? Take him to the mountain, I will show you. Doesn't ask which mountain. He says, I'll show you. Trust, okay, you're going to show me. And how long does it take to get there? 3 days. And how's he traveling? High-speed Concorde? With lots of fantastic entertainment systems. He's traveling by camel, by foot, for 3 days. Is that enough time to do some thinking? What's he thinking? Chazal tell us. Rashi says it in the fewest words. Shelo hiher acharav. He didn't think after him. He didn't think. 1 second. He's a brilliant mind. How can he not think? Oh, he probably got a pop-up. God, are you out of your mind? Delete. But you told me this kid. Delete. But I mean, 30 years before I even it was delete. He wasn't thinking. I don't believe he even had to get a pop-up to delete, because the Nisayan is only a Nisayan if I think about it. The more ladies, how many of you have a problem deciding this Friday night, shall I light candles or not? I wonder. I'm guessing most of you don't have that as a Nisayan. Do you know why? Because you don't think about it. When you get up in the morning, and it could take some time to decide what you're going to dress, but you don't sit there wondering, shall I wake up? Shall I get up? Shall I start my day? You might say, I'll go back to sleep. I do that often, but you know, if it's not a Nisayan, it's because you're not thinking about it. Do you follow? It is so ridiculously, deceptively simple, but it goes over our heads. Why does it go over my head? Because it's like asking a fish, hey, how's the water? What water? No, how's the air? What air? The only time I think about air is if I'm almost 1 second too long under the water. Air! Oxygen! I need air! I don't think about air all day long. I don't wake up wondering, God, are you going to give me enough oxygen today? Really, no, really. And will the distance of the sun be exactly, pretty much in the same range, so that the gravitational pull will be enough that when I jump, I'll come back down? Please, God, I'm anxious. If you're not thinking about it, it's not an assignment, it's not a test. And any test that you have overcome, marriage, children, is probably because you didn't, when you got the pop-up, you just didn't explore it too much. You just got on with it. And here's what I think is the most incredible proof of all this. How many Holocaust survivors do you know that went through decades of therapy to undo the trauma of memories that they will never be able to erase? And you know what's really shocking? Pretty much 99.9% of Holocaust survivors, were they talking and talking and talking about, you have no idea what I've been through. And going on and on, the pain was... Do they share it with their spouse who's also a Holocaust survivor? What's going on? What did they do instead? They started their lives again, stopped thinking about it. Now when they were asleep at night, they had nightmares, and sometimes they would joke with each other in the morning, which camp did you dream about last night? But during the day, they were busy. Building family, building community, building yeshivas, building the Jewish people. It's only in decades and decades later, all the kids are out and all the kids are married, that they will start to talk about it. But now it's so far away from the original experience, they can talk about it. It's not because it was too painful. And if you want to argue about that, that's fine. But it's because, if every time I talk about my first, second marriage, that kid, that person who conned me, if every time I talk about it, I get reeled up, and I get overwhelmed and hurt and pained and angry, resentful, why would I choose that pop-up? Where's the pop-up? Oh, here it is. Why would I do that? So comes along Rashi and tells me, Shelohir acharav. Another place says, Shelohir achrei midoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He didn't think. He didn't second guess God's reasons. After God said to him, I don't want you to do it. Avraham, don't send your hand against him. Then Avraham said, I've got some questions to ask you. Do you understand? But it wasn't. That's how we have inside of us the same DNA. Every single person's got, this is a completely flat playing field that everybody's got the same next thought. You get to choose. And if it's a pop-up you like, explore. If you know where it takes you, delete, ignore. That's what Avraham Avinu did. And it says in the Medrash, when the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, came to him, and then to his son, he kept on answering, Almanas came. That's the way it is. That's the way it is. He wouldn't get into a conversation with the Satan who says, how do you know it was really God? Maybe you just dreamt it. He wouldn't negotiate with terrorists. He just wouldn't go there. He's not going to negotiate with thoughts that are going to pull me down, because that's where I live. And I don't want to live in thoughts that pull me down. So you could say, hey, that's denial. No, it's not denial. It's more reality than not reality. Because David HaMelech, nobody in world history, says the Gemara, nobody suffered as much as David HaMelech. Even Eov, he had the most suffering in a 12-month period. Nobody suffered over a lifetime as much as David HaMelech. And yet he could say several times, Natata simcha b'libi, you've already given me, in my mind, reasons to be happy. I've already got the reasons. Now when the pop-ups come and they look really real, I'm not taking away, because he suffered from losing 4 sons in his lifetime. A daughter raped by one of his sons. Till 29, he was tormented within his own family. They assumed him to be, at the very most, a Suffolk mamzer. A bastard. And that's what he was in the minds of his immediate family. And he's busy walking around. Why me? How come, if you exist, God, why are you doing this to me? What did I do wrong? Or is he busy singing sweet songs? Hodu Lashem, Oh my gosh, if I count up your chesed, le'olam chesed is unlimited. Really? Isn't that denial? No, it's not denial. It's reality. So that when, not if, when I get the pop-ups and they hurt, what's going to be my next thought in the context of my life? Well, God, when were you last good to me? So quick show of hands, how many of you woke up this morning? Now, if you ask the guy who's buried in the ground, how much would he pay for one more day? You see, every day above ground is a really good day. Oh, really? Yeah, it's a really good... Yeah, but what about the couples? No, don't go there, please. What about the kids, the teenagers, the married children, the divorced children? What about... Pop-ups are pop-ups, they're thoughts. But God wants me to know He gave us the ability to control ka'as. It may not be in this thought, but it could be in the next thought when I start realizing, hey, I'm angry. No, I'm not angry because of you. I'm angry because I'm choosing anger in the moment. And if I stop being angry, turn it into a soft voice, or not answer at all, what happens to the back and forth conflict? What happens when we shut our mouths from strength? What happens? It can help it stop or tone it down a whole lot until the other person and myself are in a place that we can actually possibly talk and not get angry, talk without screaming, talk without insults, talk without comparing and reminding of. So comes along the Torah and wants me to know we live in this way all the time. That's reality. And the sum total of our lives is da'at. And kas, in the words of Rebbe Nachman, is a chesaron of da'at. It's just not realizing what reality. Reality is God is real all the time with me, inside me. And He's given me the incredible power of being able to go to the next thought. And in recognizing I am surrounded by thought and that's the only thing I ever exist in, we can actually almost literally become totally liberated from accusing and blaming and excusing and denying and comparing. Because now it's not about the outside world that's acting on me, is I can actually choose to be liberated from anger or jealousy or this deep emotion of feelings of revenge or resentment. And it's not going to be a one-time thing. I'm going to get tried plenty of times during the day, but once I know the secret, it's not even that big a secret because I guess I'm only calling it a secret because it's just so deceptively simple. Because, oh my head, I'm already in the water. What water? Oxygen is everywhere. What do you mean, how's the air? I only get to feel the air if it's really humid. Have you ever experienced that? I only get to feel the air if it's really too cold. It's going down my back or my neck. I only get to think about air when something's wrong with the temperature. But all the rest of the time, I don't go there because I don't think about it. It's just not a problem. It's not a nisayon. A nisayon is what I'm carrying. And the nisayon gets really hard when it's too much. And it's mostly my overweight thinking. It's not coming from the problem. The problem is not the problem. The problem is what I'm thinking. And when I let go of that, oh my gosh, it could save me a fortune of money and it can save me a fortune of peace of mind to realize, you mean to say I'm healthy? You mean to say that I'm only ever one thought away from mental health? You mean to say I'm only one thought away from deleting a pop-up?